Imagine the static of a dead radio, the only sound for 50 miles. You are alone at a desolate interstate outpost. Heavy footsteps crunch on the gravel just outside your booth. Something is lurking near the empty fuel pumps. Tonight, the vast indifferent sky is your only witness. There are places on the American highway system that the modern world has simply forgotten. Junctions that dropped off the atlas when the interstates were rerouted. Fuel stops whose pumps ran dry before you were born. Rest areas that appear on maps as small blue icons, but which, in reality, are nothing more than a concrete building and a parking lot. Sitting in the middle of a darkness so complete it feels physical. We do not often think about who staffs these places. We do not wonder who is awake at 3 a.m. in a glass booth surrounded by 80 miles of empty highway. Listening to the wind and the hum of failing fluorescent lights. We fill up our tanks and drive away back into the flow of headlights. Back into the comfortable illusion that we are never truly alone out here. We are wrong about that. Tonight, we have 3 accounts from people who worked the overnight shift at isolated highway outposts across the American interior. 3 people who sat alone in the dark and discovered that the solitude they had accepted was not, in fact, solitude at all. These stories are told as they were given to us, directly, plainly, without embellishment. The individuals involved were found to be credible. What they experienced has not been explained. What they left behind, the jobs, the locations, has not been recovered. These are their accounts. Not all isolation is the same. There is the isolation of a quiet room, a closed door, a weekend alone. And then there is the isolation of the high plains, a category of alone that has no analog in ordinary human experience. It is not peaceful. It is not restorative. It is the feeling of standing at the edge of something that does not care whether you exist. Dale knew this when he took the job. He took it anyway. In retrospect, he would say that this is where his mistake began. Dale had turned 53 the March before he took the overnight position at the old Farley's Fuel and Provisions on US 287. The station had been decommissioned 3 years prior. The underground storage tanks were old. The liability was not worth the revenue. There was the main structure, a cinder block building roughly the size of a 2-car garage, divided between a small customer area and a back room. There was the forecourt, with its 3 dead pump islands still wearing their BP canopy like a relic of a prior civilization. Dale's job description was, be there, be awake, call 911 if anything moves. He was paid $14 an hour. He brought paperback westerns, a thermos, and a pair of binoculars he never used because there was nothing to look at. For the first 4 months, the job was exactly what it appeared to be, nothing. He watched the occasional long-haul truck pass like a ghost ship. He describes the shift change moment, the precise instant when 2 a.m. became something qualitatively different from midnight. He was the only living thing for 4 miles in every direction. He knew this with the same physical certainty as stepping on something with a pulse. Dale describes spending the remainder of that shift acutely aware of his own presence, the sound of his own breathing, the creak of his chair. The industrial freezer in the back room was a commercial chest unit, approximately 6 feet long, sitting in the northeast corner. On the night of August 14, clear sky, no traffic. Dale was 40-odd pages into a book when he heard the tapping. 3 beats, a pause. 3 beats, a pause. Steady and patient, like a metronome set to a tempo designed to match a resting heartbeat. The tapping had a specific quality, hollow, slightly resonant. The sound a knuckle makes against the metal surface that has air behind it. He sat in his booth and listened to the tapping for 11 minutes without moving from his chair. He is very precise about this interval. He walked to the door of the back room and pushed it open. The tapping stopped instantly, completely. The room was lit by a single bulb. The freezer's steel surface caught the light in a dull, flat way. Nothing had moved. At 6:17 a.m., with the first horizontal light showing, Dale went back to the freezer. He released the latch and lifted the lid. The freezer was empty. He had not expected what was on the interior of the lid. 4 parallel grooves in the stainless steel. They were deep drag channels. The steel at the edges of each groove was slightly raised, curled upward. They were the dimensions of fingernails. Scratch marks on the inside of a sealed lid, on an empty freezer. In the building, he had been alone in every night for 4 months. He photographed the marks. He did not return to the station the following Monday. He submitted his resignation by text message. The replacement, Corbin, quit after 6 days. leaving behind his thermos and a note on the shift log that said, "I heard it too." The building is still there. The freezer is still in the back room. The scratches are still on the inside of the lid. Whatever was making that sound was not afraid of him. It was not in distress. It was simply doing what it was doing. And when he finally opened that door, it stopped. Not because it was gone, but because it had decided to wait. Story 2. The uninvited guest at mile marker 42. There are two distinct categories of fear. The first is the fear of something unknown, the dark room, the unexplained sound, the presence you can't name. This fear is ancient and biological, and most people have felt it. The second category is rarer and, in many ways, more difficult to survive. It is the fear of something that has turned its full deliberate attention toward you. Something that knows your schedule. Something that has studied your habits with the patience of a researcher and the intent of a predator. This fear does not resolve, it follows you home. It changes the fundamental equation by which you understand yourself to be safe in the world. Renata encountered both categories, but it was the second that she has never recovered from. Part 1. Dry Fork, New Mexico. Renata was 26 in the summer. She took the overnight management position at Dry Fork Travelers, Mart off Interstate 40. The store was a third-generation family operation. 4 gas pumps, a small convenience store, and a gravel lot that could accommodate 12 vehicles. The property sat in a shallow depression, flanked by scrub junipers. This tree line would become the fixed point around which everything orbited. The overnight shift allowed her to study for her paralegal certification. She was disciplined and comfortable with the quiet. She was not comfortable with what the quiet eventually revealed. The feeling came first, the absolute physical certainty that something was watching her. She would look at the east-facing window, and the junipers would be still. There was nothing to account for the feeling. Part 2. The Burgundy Sedan. The car first appeared on a Thursday in late July, at 2:47 a.m. Renata heard it before she saw it, the slow crunch of tires on gravel. Then headlights swept across the interior through the front windows. It was a Burgundy sedan. Older model, late 1990s, dusty and road-grimed. The right rear taillight was cracked, a dark spiderweb fracture. The engine was still running. No one got out. The driver's silhouette was just barely visible through the windshield, motionless. The driver's side window descended. It stopped at approximately 3 inches. Then the intercom speaker crackled and a male voice came through. "Voice, what time do you get off?" Renata froze. She pressed the button and said her shift ended at 6. Voice, "I know. I meant, what days do you work?" The car sat motionless for 63 seconds and then disappeared. He came back on a Tuesday, then Friday. Each visit, the question was different, specific, personal, probing the architecture of her routine. Voice, "You drive the gray Honda, right? The one you park on the south side?" Renata called 911. 2 deputies arrived 40 minutes later. The sedan was gone. They told her to stay visible and keep the lights on. Part 3. The interior feed. On a Tuesday in September, Renata glanced up at the CCTV monitor. The interior feed. A figure, standing in the cereal aisle. Renata turned around. The aisle was empty. There was no one there. She turned back to the monitor. The figure was still in the feed. She left the store. She did not lock the door. She walked to her gray Honda and drove to Santa Rosa without stopping. Part 4. The review. Security concluded the figure was a ghost frame recording artifact. But the sedan owner has never been identified. To know which car was hers, whoever was asking would have had to be on foot in the dark, close enough to identify it. She only knows that by the time she was aware of being watched, she had already been watched for a very long time. Story 3. Signals from the Dead Zone. There is a particular kind of loneliness specific to the person who monitors emergency frequencies on the overnight shift. Unlike other overnight workers who simply wait in the quiet, the emergency monitor waits for someone to need them. They sit with a live channel open to the most desperate circumstances human beings can find themselves in, and they listen for the voice. This listening has a weight to it. It accumulates. And in the deep wilderness, that weight becomes something else. Something that is very difficult, once you have felt it, to put down. Marcus knows this now. Part 1. The Big Empty. Marcus was 31 when he accepted the overnight desk position at a state-operated rest area on US 191. The landscape is not dramatic. There are no mountains, no features that announce themselves. There is only the flat grassland and the sky. The rest area was a modest installation, a brick comfort station, a picnic area, and a ranger's office roughly the size of a closet. Marcus staffed it from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. His responsibilities were standard: maintain cleanliness, deter camping, and monitor the emergency radio frequency. The emergency radio was the center of his job. A weathered Motorola base unit tuned permanently to the standard emergency band. In 6 months, he received 2 calls: a man with a flat tire and a woman who took a wrong turn. Both were resolved. He understood the landscape. He was not frightened of the dark or the silence. He was not prepared for the silence to answer back. Part 2. The first call. The radio activated at 3:18 a.m. on a Wednesday in late October. The voice was a woman's. She was frightened. Mile marker 67, I think. My vehicle, it won't start. I've tried 3 times. It's dark out here. I can't see the road from where I am. There's someone on the road. I think they're not moving. Marcus responded immediately, giving the dispatch frequency. Then very clearly, she said, "Don't let them see the light from the building." The signal cut. Marcus drove the 3 miles north and south with his emergency lights off. He found nothing. No vehicle. No figure. No evidence. He did not, at that point, know that the frequency the call had come in on had not been in active use since 1987. Part 3. 4 more nights. The second call came 11 days later. Same woman's voice. Same fragmented quality. She described a vehicle that had been following her. It just stopped. Just sitting there with the lights off. Whatever you do, don't come with the lights on. The fourth call was briefer. She said the other vehicle was closer. She said she could hear something against the glass of her car. She said, "Don't go outside tonight. Whatever you hear on the gravel, don't go outside." Part 4. The frequency. He brought the recording to the Garfield County Sheriff's Office. The technician's findings were delivered 2 days later. The frequency had been decommissioned in 1987. There were no repeater installations within 100 miles that operated on that channel. The signal had arrived on a dead channel through infrastructure that no longer existed, carrying a voice that dispatch had no record of. Part 5. The handprint. He was conducting his 5 a.m. patrol when the first horizontal light began to show over the eastern horizon. On the glass door of the office, pressed directly onto the surface from the outside. A handprint rendered in dark clay or dried earth. The forensic results identified the substance as alluvial clay from seasonal creek beds 11 to 14 miles west. Soil that does not occur naturally here. Whoever left the handprint had carried that clay with them, had pressed it deliberately onto the glass without making a sound on the gravel. Marcus now works in building maintenance. He does not work overnight. The thing he cannot stop thinking about is the handprint, the deliberateness. Whatever was happening on that highway, it was not just happening out there. It was here, at his building, at his door. Epilogue. The price of perpetual solitude. 3 people, 3 outposts, 3 different corners of the American interior. What connects these accounts is the specific and targeted exploitation of human isolation. A person alone is already halfway taken. The graveyard shift at a remote rest stop is an ideal environment in which to study a human being without consequence. If you work the overnight shift at an isolated outpost, please understand one thing. The quiet you hear is not the quiet of a place at rest. It is the quiet of a place that has learned to wait for you. And whatever is waiting has never been in a hurry.